We're back now with two-time Oscar winner Denzel Washington. Yes, he teamed up once again with director Spike Lee for the new movie Highest to Lowest. Always wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
Angie, I don't even see anybody right now. I just see you. No one else is here on the couch.
We open on a moment that still doesn't make sense on paper, because we've all spent decades believing Denzel Washington cannot be rattled, cannot be cornered, cannot be pulled into a situation he didn't already calculate 5 steps ahead. But when we look at the footage from that live morning broadcast in early 2025, we can see something different happening. We can see a 70-year-old Hollywood legend, fresh from producing August Wilson's adaptations and headlining the record-breaking Broadway run of Othello, deciding in real time that Michael Strahan's line of questioning wasn't a misfire. It was a trigger. We're told to view this as a walk-off, a moment of frustration. But the more we dig into it, the more we see it as something else entirely. This was Denzel executing a deliberate power move on national television. And Strahan never realized he was stepping into a trap that had been building for months.
Strong.
Ooh. All right.
Okay, we gonna leave that alone.
I'm not there yet. I'm on my way. Still got that.
Watch out, Strahan. Yeah.
Oh,
No. I got to respect the professionals.
I got to keep a jacket on. I can't keep up. You know what? The only thing be better than me is being Denzel. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, that's saying something, because you don't go there.
I don't go there, but I want to be you.
We've followed Strahan's career long enough to know he's not reckless by accident. He's an NFL Hall of Famer who transitioned into daytime broadcasting with charm, timing, and that trademark grin he's used to disarm everyone from politicians to pop stars. Yet insiders who were on the set that day insist this wasn't Denzel losing patience. It was Strahan misreading a man who had just been ordained as a Pentecostal minister in December 2024, just days before turning 70, and whose entire public image had sharpened into something more disciplined, more grounded, more spiritually aligned. The disrespect wasn't casual, it was glaring, and when we consider that Denzel had spent 2024 working with Ridley Scott on Gladiator 2, accepting a reported $20 million paycheck, and publicly reaffirming his dedication to faith and family, the carelessness of Strahan's questions takes on a different weight. By the time Strahan dismissed Denzel's decades of range, everything from Shakespeare to action thrillers to biographical dramas, our phones started lighting up with industry whispers. According to one producer who was in the control room that morning, Strahan had been told before the segment to stick to the script. They claim he insisted on going off book, saying he wanted to keep it real because his rapport with guests was what made the show work. But when we put that next to his tone on air, a pattern emerges. He didn't just ask Denzel about serious roles. He implied that the man who played Malcolm X, the man who carried fences to awards season dominance, the man who helped his children bring the piano lesson to the Toronto International Film Festival in 2024, was creatively stagnant. That kind of framing doesn't come from curiosity. It comes from a blind spot that has been growing behind the scenes for a while.
It's easy, Michael.
You always put me on the spot.
Man to man, son to son. What would you do?
What hits hardest when we analyze the moment is Denzel's reaction. Not anger, not defensiveness. Cold, professional detachment. The same steady calm we've seen him apply on red carpets, during award snubs, and in interviews where he's asked to relive the past. We can see exactly when he decides the interview is no longer worth engaging. It's the second Strahan waves a hand and tells him he's taking things too seriously. For a man whose career spans nearly 50 years, whose performances have grossed over $3.7 billion at the global box office, being told he doesn't understand his own artistic trajectory is more than disrespect. It's amateur hour, and we can't ignore what follows. Denzel's silence. Once he walked off that set, he didn't post a reaction, didn't release a statement, didn't call in to clarify. He simply let the clip circulate. Within 48 hours, according to 2 separate advertising contacts we spoke with, several sponsors began reaching out to the network asking for assurances that morning segments would maintain professional standards. We're told these weren't casual requests. These were formal inquiries tied to contracts, brand image, and scheduling for the remaining broadcast quarter. And because advertisers are the backbone of morning television, the tone shifted inside the building immediately. Producers who had previously defended Strahan's improvisational style started using words like risk, exposure, and liability. The fallout wasn't public, but it was immediate. Meanwhile, Denzel went on with his life, attending rehearsals for Othello at the Barrymore Theatre, where the production had reached over $2.8 million in weekly grosses by March 2025, and continuing preparations for his next slate of films.
What my mother said to me was, Denzel, you do a lot of good, but you must do good the right way. She said, and you know what I'm talking about. Can't buy your way in. Can't love your way in. You gotta serve. You gotta do good the right way.
Behind that silence, though, we can see something forming. We know Denzel doesn't leave things unfinished. This is the same man who wrote "The Wages of Sin is Tragedy" on the front of his Training Day script in 2001. The same man who explained to Esquire that he no longer worries about the industry's discomfort with faith because I'm free now. Those aren't the words of someone waiting for public sympathy. Those are the words of someone who understands leverage. And as the clip gained traction online, Strahan tried to soften the narrative, posting a brief apology that people inside the studio told us was more about calming executives than addressing the root of what happened. But even as his team scrambled, the silence from Denzel's camp continued, and we've learned that silence was not passive. Several sources close to the situation claim that within a week of the incident, Denzel began making calls, not to his agent, not to his PR team, not to ABC executives, to individuals who have shaped the cultural, philanthropic, and artistic landscape he's spent decades cultivating. Individuals who, according to one insider, don't respond to drama, but they respond when Denzel says something isn't right. Whatever he was setting in motion, it wasn't about an apology or a statement. It was about accountability. And as Strahan's apology was still circulating, as the network quietly rearranged internal staff assignments, we started hearing that Denzel's next move wasn't about morning television at all. It was something larger, something Strahan never anticipated when he leaned back in that chair and tried to keep it real. Something that suggests the walk-off was only the first step in a much broader reckoning that was about to change how this industry talks to one of its most decorated living legends.
Where he leads me, I will follow. And sometimes it's in the valley. You know, like this role, the wages of sin is. There's no point in worrying about or thinking that it doesn't exist. You know, it's interesting that a role like this is celebrated. You know, we're at the doorstep. You know, pick a side. I know where I am, and I know where I'm going. So I'm not worrying about what I'm doing. I know who leads me, and I know it.
While Michael Strahan was busy crafting his apology, we could already see that Denzel Washington was 3 steps ahead, and the first domino had nothing to do with the interview. Within 24 hours of the walk-off, insiders say Denzel's team quietly contacted Disney leadership about future collaborations, not grievances. They weren't calling to rehash the moment on GMA. They were asking about next steps for the remaining August Wilson adaptations, about distribution pipelines, about a potential Gladiator spin-off building on the momentum of Ridley Scott's 2024 sequel. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Strahan was fighting to steady his job. Denzel was expanding an empire he'd already spent decades building. While that conversation unfolded behind corporate doors, another leak hit the industry. We're told ABC's legal department began fielding calls from high-profile guests, some of whom had upcoming appearances on the morning lineup. They were all asking the same pointed question. If this is how you treat Denzel Washington, how are you treating the rest of us? It wasn't outrage. It was fear disguised as curiosity, because the reaction made one thing clear. If a 70-year-old legend with 2 Oscars, a minister's license, and a global box office footprint could be spoken to like an afterthought, what chance did anyone else have?
Nas is one of my favorites of all time. Yeah. Because I talk a lot, so he's a wordsmith. I'm up on this now. I was talking about it the other day. This young group, this girl Samara Sin and Smino.
Oh, you're
brand new teeth. Oof.
You stay current with this.
Inside the network, the panic reportedly escalated fast. Disney brass, who normally shield their anchors from external storms, began combing through Strahan's contract page by page. According to a source familiar with the process, they weren't looking for excuses to defend him. They were looking for performance clauses that could justify a quiet transition in case this scandal didn't fade. That pivot mattered. It meant this wasn't a one-off crisis. It was a symptom of a larger pattern executives had allegedly ignored for years. Improvisation presented as authenticity, charm used in place of preparation, and lingering tensions with colleagues that had been dismissed as personality clashes. That's where the second consequence hit, and it came from outside the building. Strahan's agency, CAA, reportedly received a wave of brand cancellations. Partnerships paused, negotiations postponed, and one high-visibility apparel deal pulled entirely. These weren't tied to the walk-off alone. They were tied to a phrase that kept appearing in internal emails, according to an individual with knowledge of those messages. Unscripted drama. Brands do not invest millions of dollars in uncertainty, and the footage made Strahan look like he had triggered a crisis he didn't understand until it was too late. For many decision-makers, Denzel's walk-off wasn't the cause. It was permission for the industry to reevaluate a host whose off-the-cuff bravado had long been rumored to be a liability. While that fallout hit Strahan from all sides, Denzel's silence took on a different shape. We could see how deliberate it was because every day he chose not to comment. The narrative hardened around the host who had caused the mess. Denzel didn't need interviews. He didn't need PR reinforcement. People had already watched the clip, replayed the moment his expression shifted, and noticed the instant he mentally disengaged. Silence became strategy. By doing nothing, Denzel let the scandal grow teeth.
I am officially going to stay in my own corner because I've come to realize that people aren't interested in what I say. They're interested in how they could use it.
I see.
They want.
Behind that silence, something else was forming. A legal team renowned for its precision reportedly compiled a dossier. Not a complaint, not a threat, but a record. They weren't just reviewing the footage from that morning. They were looking back. According to two separate sources, the dossier included a buried 2023 on-air clash between Strahan and a former co-host that ABC allegedly swept aside during contract negotiations. There were notes about segments that ran off script, meetings where producers warned him about improv that veered into discomfort, and internal reviewer summaries from the last quarter of 2024 pointing to inconsistencies in tone. The point wasn't retaliation. We can see that clearly when we compare what Denzel asked for privately, future collaboration opportunities, production clarity, creative autonomy, to what the dossier represented. It was leverage, not to remove Strahan, but to demonstrate something deeper. Denzel didn't walk off because he was offended. He walked off because boundaries matter, because preparation matters, because respect matters. For someone who built a career on discipline and range, the moment Strahan reduced that legacy to a simplification was the moment the dynamic changed.
I've always been that way. You know, the first part of your life you learn. The second part you earn.
Sorry, where's that part? Is it
the third
13?
part you
14?
return?
Okay.
You know, you give back, you know, and you return, or
up or down,
or
but you return.
So you're all still in the...
Meanwhile, industry insiders began circulating one more rumor, and it added a fresh layer to the story. As Strahan scrambled to stabilize his reputation, Denzel allegedly filed paperwork tied to a new LLC, one connected to a broader slate of creative and philanthropic projects. That move, we're told, wasn't a response. It was a continuation of the same long-term strategy he began after his December 2024 ordination at Kelly Temple in New York. The narrative inside Hollywood's upper circles became almost unanimous. Strahan had triggered something he wasn't prepared to manage, but Denzel had been preparing for this kind of moment his entire life. The effect of that preparation became even clearer when we look at how other celebrities responded behind the scenes. Several A-list actors, including those who had recently worked with Denzel on the piano lesson or shared space with him at the Barrymore Theater for Othello, allegedly reached out to ABC indirectly through their representatives. They weren't threatening cancellations. They were asking about structures, guardrails, and guarantees. Their phrasing, according to a producer who saw one of the messages, was simple. We need to know this won't happen to us. The clip had shifted trust, and trust is the most fragile currency in entertainment.
Yeah, I haven't auditioned for a movie in...
40.
I don't know if it's 40 exactly. I won an Academy Award in 1989.
That's
How many
right.
years ago is that?
So that would be 35?
I'm sure that nobody asked me to audition after
That's
that.
crazy!
I may be wrong.
love that
I
for
may
you.
be wrong. I may be wrong. I don't know.
As the internal review widened, sources claim the network began preparing contingency communication plans. One draft proposal included moving Strahan to a weekend rotation. Another explored pairing him with a senior co-anchor known for structured interviews to neutralize risk. A third scenario, the quietest of all, was described by one executive as a phased transition, corporate language that often precedes contract restructuring. This wasn't a witch hunt. It was damage control made necessary by an incident that exposed flaws ABC could no longer ignore. Through all of this, Denzel continued working. Rehearsals, production meetings, calls with directors, strategy sessions for the remaining 7 August Wilson adaptations he had committed to shepherd. We could see how little appetite he had for public spectacle because he didn't need spectacle to win. His influence operated at a level where silence becomes louder than any rebuttal. And that silence followed Strahan like a shadow. Every interview he gave, every apology he attempted, every social media post he crafted under corporate supervision. He was talking, but the absence of Denzel's voice made every word feel smaller.
Our first guest tonight on this first night back is a movie star amongst movie stars. He is celebrating his 5th collaboration with Spike Lee. Their thrilling new thriller, Highest to Lowest, is in theaters now, and it premieres Friday on Apple TV+. Please welcome Denzel Washington.
By the time analysts began predicting that GMA's leadership might consider long-term changes to protect the brand ahead of the next ratings quarter, the question had shifted. It wasn't, will Strahan recover? It was, how much did Denzel intend to reveal without ever speaking? Because once the existence of that dossier circulated through industry circles, a new tension emerged. The power wasn't in the documents themselves. It was in the understanding that Denzel had them at all. We can see that Denzel Washington didn't become a legend by accident. He became one by mastering the precision of silence, by knowing exactly when to respond and when to let others unravel in front of him. That instinct didn't start at GMA. It began decades ago when he was navigating an industry that tried to reduce him to a single archetype, pushing him into the angry black man stereotype even as he delivered layered performances that challenged every limitation placed on him. Every setback became fuel. Every misreading of his intentions became leverage. His Oscars, his Broadway dominance, his commitment to August Wilson's legacy, even his late-life ministry all reflect the same pattern. When someone underestimates Denzel, it only strengthens his trajectory while quietly dismantling theirs.
Learning.
No, I'm in the
and
ending.
today's a good day to learn a few things. But you already know those things, like to stay humble, you know, and to honor and love your parents. Try to leave the world better than you found it.
From that vantage point, the GMA walk-off looks less like a spontaneous reaction and more like another case study in how Denzel redefines power without raising his voice. And now the ripple effect is spreading. A list actors who have endured dismissive interviewers and surface-level questions are pointing to this moment as a precedent. They're recognizing that if Denzel can walk out in the middle of live television and still emerge untouched, they no longer have to sit through disrespect disguised as conversation. Talent has watched hosts wield control for years by hiding behind the structure of morning shows and late-night formats, but this incident reminded them that the cameras only hold power if the guest stays seated. Denzel proved he can stand, walk, and still own the narrative. That shift is unsettling the entire broadcast ecosystem. Agents are quietly renegotiating interview conditions. Publicists are referencing the walk-off as justification for firmer boundaries. Producers are scrambling to reassure high-profile guests that their voices won't be minimized the way Denzel's was. We can feel the unease in every corner of the industry. Michael Strahan thought he was the one leading the conversation that morning, guiding the tone and pacing. But what if Denzel was the one giving the real answers, not verbally but strategically, and the rest of Hollywood was finally ready to hear what he'd been communicating for years? And that brings us to the final twist we've been tracking. A former production assistant familiar with early conversations around the LLC filings claims Denzel's next set of ventures wasn't focused on television appearances. It was focused on reshaping how the entertainment world treats legacy performers. That alleged mission reframes the entire walk-off. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't personal. It was a warning shot. Subtle, surgical, and impossible to ignore. And now we're left with a single question that the industry hasn't answered yet. If Strahan was the first domino Denzel tipped over without lifting a finger, who's next? Let us know what you think in the comments. Stay sharp out there, and we'll see you in the next story.